Hey friends, happy Sunday and welcome back to another week of What's for Dinner. If you're new here, hello and welcome. I am Taylor. Today's What's for Dinner is a collab with my friend Sarah over at Sarah's Table. She shares what's for dinners and all kinds of food related videos, mostly like really easy stuff and budget friendly stuff. So I hope y'all will please check out her link in the description box down below and go check out her video. And if you're new here, hello, welcome. I am Taylor. I'm a stay-at-home wife and mom, and I share these What's for Dinner videos every Sunday to hopefully motivate y'all to cook more for your family and to give you some new meal ideas. As always, any recipes that I mention will be linked in the description box down below. Now let's go ahead and get into this week's What's for Dinner. Friday night, I made a one-pan cheesy nacho pasta. This is something I have made before, and back when we first tried it, I made it multiple times. We really loved it. It was definitely a favorite, but it's been quite a while since I have made it. So I started off by browning 1 pound of ground beef with some taco seasoning, some garlic powder, some onion powder, and a little bit of salt. And then once your meat is browned, you're going to want to drain off any grease if you have a lot of grease in your meat, but I didn't, so I didn't drain anything off. And then I added in 2 cups of beef broth, a can of rotel, 1 can of chili style beans, and then some cheddar cheese. This is like nacho cheese. It's the nacho cheese that I buy in the big can from Sam's Club. The original recipe calls for 1 can of nacho cheese soup, which I did use that in the past, but since I always have this actual nacho cheese on hand now, I decided just to sub with that. A can of nacho cheese soup is, I think, about like 11 ounces or something. So I just pulled out one of my bags. It was probably a little bit more nacho cheese, but it's fine. It worked out fine. So I got everything stirred together really well, and then I stirred in 2 cups of egg noodles, and then I brought that to a boil. Once it came to a boil, I reduced the heat to like a medium low and covered this with a lid and just let it simmer for about 5 to 7 minutes until those egg noodles were done. And then I stirred in some cheddar cheese, and once that was all melted, this was ready to serve. You could top this with whatever you wanted. We just did some crushed up tortilla chips and some cilantro. Saturday night, I started off by making some pizza dough. You could totally just use store-bought pizza dough, but I didn't buy any, so I just made my own. I will leave the recipe for my favorite pizza dough linked down below. Whenever I make this, I always double the recipe. Even if I don't need that much pizza dough, then I can just freeze the excess. So I started off by mixing my yeast, some honey, and warm water in the bottom of my stand mixer, and then I just let that sit for about 10 minutes for that yeast to like activate. And then I go in with about half of my flour, which for me is going to be 3 cups, my salt, and my olive oil. And then I just mix that together, and then I get my dough hook on my stand mixer and start letting that work it together. And then I will slowly add in the rest of the flour. So when I double this, I usually use up to 6 cups. This time I only was able to work in 5. It's all going to be like dependent on the weather and like the climate in your area. If you have drier weather, you're not gonna be able to add as much flour. So it's gonna vary like every time that you make it. So I got that worked in, and then I had a nice like slightly sticky dough. It didn't really stick to my fingers. It was just tacky. And once it gets to that point, you don't want to add any more flour. You just want to let this mix for like 6 minutes, and it comes together really nicely, pulls everything away from the sides of the bowl. And then I'll just take it out, oil my bowl, and then roll that ball of dough around in the oil. And then I just let this sit and rise for like 1 to 2 hours. After letting it rise, you can see it like doubled in size. So I punched it down and then I took it out and divided it in half. And I did end up freezing the other half of the dough. I did not need it this time. So I just pressed this out into a big rectangle. I am not making pizza. I'm making some barbecue pork roll-ups. I saw my friend Ashley make some barbecue chicken roll-ups and I thought that sounded delicious. And I had this pork in the freezer from a week or two ago when I made some pork in the crock pot, and I was like, I know what I'm doing with those leftovers. As soon as I saw her make that, I told her, I was like, I'm making this with pork. So once I had my dough all laid out, I brushed it with some barbecue sauce, and then I got my pork on there, and then some cheese. I did some mozzarella and some cheddar cheese, and then I just rolled this up like you would a cinnamon roll. So I took it from like the long side, I turned it, and just rolled it all up, and then you're gonna cut it just like you would a cinnamon roll. And I did this on my little like silicone baking sheet liner, so I could just pick this up and transfer it to my baking sheet. And then I baked these on 425 for 15 to 20 minutes until they were nice and golden brown. And we just served these with a salad on the side, super simple. And these were delicious. I was telling Ashley I want to try them with all the different things on the inside. Like I was thinking like some chicken with some marinara sauce, give you like a chicken parm kind of roll up thing. Yeah, I want to try it with everything. Pork carnitas, anything that you can put in a roll up. It was so good. So definitely want to try it different ways. Sunday night I made one of probably our favorite dinners like ever. It's definitely our favorite way to have tilapia. This is Bayou style crispy tilapia. It's a recipe that originally came from HelloFresh, but I've actually never had it from them. I just like find recipes on their website all the time. And this one is definitely a favorite. So I just started off by cutting up all of my produce. I've got 4 green onions. I cut those up, like sliced them up, and I kept the white parts and the green parts separately because we're going to use them for 2 different things. And then I cut up some potatoes into like wedges, and I cut up a lemon into wedges, and then I also cut up some broccoli. Now the broccoli is just not part of this meal usually, but I thought some roasted broccoli sounded really good with it. So I just got all of that cut up. Then I always mix together my remoulade, which is like a sauce that's going to go on our fish. I always do that first so that it can get back in the fridge to chill while I prep everything else. So you're going to do equal parts mayonnaise and sour cream. I do 4 tablespoons of each, or about 4 tablespoons. And then you add in about 4 teaspoons of Dijon mustard, the white parts of the green onion, some paprika, some salt and pepper, and then some lemon juice. And then you could just stir this together if you like it chunky. I don't want to try it chunky, so I use my immersion blender to really smooth it out. And then I just pop the lid on this and stick it in the fridge until everything else is done. Now for my potatoes and broccoli, I pretty much seasoned them the same way. I got some olive oil on all of them, and then I went in with some paprika on both of them, some garlic powder on both of them, some onion salt on both of them. I did some Tony's Creole seasoning only on the potatoes, and then a little bit of salt and pepper on both. And then I just tossed that around with my hands, and then I put the potatoes in the oven on 425, and they took about 30 minutes. And then for the broccoli, it went in at 425 as well, but I didn't put it in until the very end. The broccoli only took about 15 minutes to cook. Now for the tilapia, I've got 4 pieces of tilapia here that I've dried off really well with some paper towels, and we're just going to cut these in half. The tilapia comes so it's already like kind of split, so you're just going to follow that split down so you've got 2 sides to your tilapia. You usually end up with like a thicker piece and a not so thick piece, and I kind of keep them like separated that way, like the thicker pieces together and the thinner pieces together, because obviously the thicker pieces are going to take a little bit longer to cook, and I do these in batches, so I usually do all the thick pieces together and all of the thin pieces together. Now I'm prepping like the batter, I guess you would call it, for my fish. So I'm mixing together about 4 tablespoons of sour cream, and then you mix in about 2 tablespoons of water. I was like done with that container of sour cream, so I just put a little bit of water in there and then dumped it into the sour cream. And then whatever seasoning you want to use, I switch it up sometimes. I did some salt and pepper and some Tony's Creole seasoning, and then you just whisk that together really well. And then for our like breading mixture, I mixed together some panko and some cornstarch, and then some paprika and some Tony's Creole seasoning to season up our breading. And I just kind of whisked that all together really well, made sure it was nice and combined. And then you're just going to take each piece of the tilapia, dip it in that sour cream mixture, and then dip it into the panko mixture, making sure to like press it in there so it sticks to it really well. And you're just going to repeat that for all of your pieces of tilapia. And here is what they look like. And in a deep skillet, I heated up some oil. I did about 1/3 of an inch is what the recipe said. And I tell that it's hot by using a toothpick. If the oil sizzles when you dip the toothpick in, you know it's hot. So I put the fish in the oil. And as I said, I do this in batches. So the thinner pieces only take about 2 minutes per side. And then the thicker ones, you do the same thing, but they cook for about 3 minutes per side. And when they're done, I just remove them and drain them on a like paper towel lined plate just to absorb any of that excess grease. So here is my plate to serve it. I just put some of that remoulade that I made on top of my fish, as well as the green parts of the green onion. We've got our potato wedges and some broccoli and a little bit of lemon wedge on the side too. And I like to actually dip my potato wedges in that remoulade sauce. It is so good. It is Monday night, and tonight for dinner we are having KFC. Got some chicken, biscuits, mac and cheese, mashed potatoes, and gravy. I was about to cook dinner. That's why there's water in a pot over there. But one of the kids got sick. I had to deal with that and clean everything up. So Andy brought us food home for dinner so that I didn't have to cook. But yeah, we're all gonna eat some of this, and that's gonna be dinner for Monday. Tuesday night, I just kind of made up a recipe. I never really follow a recipe when I make something like this. It's just kind of like what I know. And so I started off with some chicken breast that I cut up into bite-sized pieces, and I seasoned it really well. I started with some olive oil, and then I did some paprika, some garlic powder, some onion powder, a little bit of lemon pepper, and some Italian seasoning, and then some salt and pepper. I just tossed that around and got it coated really well. And then I spread that chicken into a hot skillet, like in a nice flat layer, so that I could cook really well and get a nice sear. And I just left that alone for a little bit so it could get that good sear on it. The pasta I'm using for this recipe is some bucatini that I picked up at Aldi. It's the first time I ever made it. So I brought some salted water to a boil to cook that, and I just cooked it to the package directions. But I did reserve some of that pasta water to use later for my sauce. I reserved about a cup of it. Once my chicken was done, I removed it from the pan, and then I added in a couple cloves of minced garlic and let that cook for about 30 seconds. And then after letting the garlic cook for a little bit, I added in some sun-dried tomatoes and let those cook for about another minute. Then I added in 1 cup of chicken broth, and I used that to kind of like deglaze the pan, scrape up any bits from the bottom, and then I just let that simmer for about 3 minutes. Then I added in some pesto. This is about half of one of those big jars from Sam's Club, so probably about 11 ounces of pesto. So I just stirred that in and let it get nice and hot. Once it was nice and hot, I added that to my cooked bucatini. I ended up having my pasta in the bigger pot and then just pouring the sauce over that pasta and mixing it all together really well. I also added in about a cup of grated Parmesan cheese and then some of that reserved pasta water. Once I had that all mixed in, I tossed back in my chicken. If I made this again in the future, which I probably will, it tasted really good, I would probably just keep my chicken on the side and like top the noodles with it, like on everybody's bowl, because it kind of got lost like at the bottom of the pot and it was hard to like get chicken and noodles. You just like got mostly noodles and then you had to go back in and like scoop towards the bottom to get chicken. So I think I would just do the chicken on top next time. But here is what that looked like all plated up. It was delicious. I would definitely make it again and I would definitely recommend it. Wednesday night, I tried a new quick and simple recipe that I saw on TikTok. I've seen quite a few people make this on TikTok. It's called taco rice. So you just start out by browning about a pound of ground beef with some taco seasoning. Once your ground beef is all browned, you just want to drain off any grease if you have any, and then start adding in your other ingredients. I saw some people add rotel, some people didn't, so I thought it would be good in it, so I did add rotel, added some more taco seasoning, 2 cups of instant rice, you want to make sure it's instant rice, and then 2 cups of water. And after I mixed in the water, I realized maybe I want that to be beef broth. So I added in some Knorr beef bouillon to make it into a beef broth to give it a little bit more flavor. And then you just let this come to a boil. And then once it's at a boil, you can top it with some cheese and then put a lid on it and let it sit for 5 minutes. And then it's done. It's super quick and easy. So after the 5 minutes, you just remove the lid and stir it all together. And yeah, you've got taco rice. I cut up some lettuce and some cilantro. And then we also had like some sour cream, some Taco Bell sauce, some extra cheese, and some chips to serve this with. I think it would also be really good inside of a burrito. I mean, it's not like the best, like most flavorful thing in the world. You could definitely add more seasoning and stuff to it, but I thought it was a great, like really quick dinner because seriously, this took me less than 15 minutes to make. And Thursday night we had Mississippi pot roast. So most of us have already seen this before. We all know how to make it. You need an au jus packet, a ranch packet, some pepperoncini peppers, and butter for like the traditional Mississippi pot roast. But I like to add carrots and potatoes. So I do half of those seasoning packets on my big chuck roast. Then I add in my carrots and potatoes, and then I top those with the rest of that ranch and the rest of the au jus, a little bit of the juice from the pepperoncini peppers, and then I top it with a couple of those pepperoncini peppers and 1 whole stick of butter. Then you just put the lid on this and let it cook on low all day. And here is what it looks like in the end. I usually just scoop out the potatoes and carrots into a separate bowl, and then I'm able to get to my meat better and shred it up. And my family likes to have this over rice, so I just made some perfect instant pot white rice to go with this. This is definitely a staple in our house, and it's always delicious. And that is going to be it for this week's What's for Dinner. Don't forget, as I mentioned at the beginning, this was a collab with my friend Sarah over at Sarah's Table. Her link is in the description box. Please go check her out, show her some love, let her know that you came over from my channel. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see y'all in the next one. Bye!